Welcome to the Power Forward Pod, hosted by the Power Forward Group Financial Advisory Team, where we believe 2 is better than 1. Dialogues are better than monologues. Thoughts were meant to be challenged. Sound boxes are the enemy, and change is the only constant. If you want to learn more about our day job, check out the website. If you want to hear more of our content, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere on social media. Check out our library. But today, I'm excited to have Hunter Gimbel with us, CEO, managing partner of the Gaber Group. Let's start there.
You got it right the second time.
I got it. We don't tell people it's 2 takes, but that's what's complicated, right? So Hunter Gimbel running the Gaber Group. Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, Ruvin, Power Forward Group, thank you for having me. I've been following Ruvin and the entire team for a long time. I've known Ruvin, personally and professionally now for a number of years, and you built an unbelievable team that's growing. I was just in the amazing space here, and just happy to be on the podcast today. So I think we have a similar mentality about how we go about business, in that we want to provide the best value we can to the specific families, individuals, and businesses that we work with. Maybe slightly different than the Power Forward Group. We spend a lot of our time focusing in a few specific markets. One being healthcare, and the second being financial services. So we have a number of clients that work at an investment bank, private equity, and some that work at a hedge fund. But most of the discussions we're having is around personal planning and what keeps our clients up at night. And much of the conversation is less about finance and more about their specific situation, about their kids, about what's going on in the world, and then we get deep into how we solve those problems or opportunities.
Right. So just to reframe it a little bit, right? The Gaber Group is a financial advisory firm. You're going back to how long? When did the Gaber Group start?
So Fred Gaber, the founder of the firm, founded the firm in the mid '80s. Fred, when he got out of college, wanted to go and work on Wall Street, and if you went to our credenza, his desk, you would see rejection letters from Goldman, Drexel, Lehman, and he used that as kind of fire in his belly, because he realized, well, maybe that was a sign of rejection from those specific firms. He was very competitive and felt that there was a value add that he could bring to that marketplace. And fortunately, I had the benefit of meeting Fred, and we became fast friends. And he was a mentor of mine, and he approached me to join and eventually take over the business. And I was humbled because he had built a great practice before I got here.
Amazing. So big shoes to fill.
Very big shoes to fill.
When did you take over?
So Fred approached me in the winter of 2015. Okay. I actually thought he was calling the wrong person. I really was surprised. He was a larger than life character for me at that point in time, at least in the financial services space. And I was nervous that I would be able to fill those shoes, because he had been, again, at a certain level that I felt was way above where I was at the time.
Right. So the first time I met, and the reason I really know Hunter is our office spaces are adjacent, right? We work in the same building for the moment. Thank you for the compliments on our spaces, but I think we're going to be moving in the near future, a little further downtown Manhattan. But the first time I ever met Hunter, I was coming off an elevator and I see this guy in a 3-piece suit, and I knew, all right, that's a financial advisor. Meanwhile, I'm wearing my jeans and my polo shirt. I'm trying to be a new age financial advisor. But Hunter's walking to a practice started by Fred. So you come in, you train on the ground, you learn from your mentor, right? And then you keep the name on the door, which I love, right? Tell us about that.
So it's funny you bring that up. Fred and I speak regularly, and as I mentioned, besides for our partnership, we're become dear friends. And Fred has said to me many, many times, hey, at this point, maybe it's time to change the name, whether change the name to the Gimbel Group or whatever you want. And I thought about it. We've had meetings about it. We've debated it. And I always felt that the firm should be bigger than me. And if I put my name on the door, that would just be an ego play for me. The clients wouldn't care. Maybe my family would be happy about it, but I didn't think that would really be the right decision from a team standpoint or a company standpoint. And so every time I've debated doing it, I've kind of decided to go against it and kind of keep the legacy name that we've had. Things change over time, so I don't know if the name will remain for the next 10, 20, or 30 years, but for now, it's going to stay the Gaber Group.
Right. We struggle with a similar thought process. It's common in the financial industry services to say, all right, let's just put my last name on the door and my company or my team will grow from there and we'll see what it becomes. When we came here to Park, our current offices, we created Power Forward Group. And the idea is I didn't want to put my name on the door because I wanted a growth story, right? We want our advisors to come here to bring their practices here to the platform we built to help power forward their clients together. And I didn't want it to be about me. I want it to be about our advisors and our client and the value we're bringing forward. And then even when I think about my kids, who I love very much, I also don't want to create that, the requirement on their shoulder. They got to continue dad's business. I want to keep it an open environment. It's interesting you have similar thoughts. If you did change the name, would it come Gimbel Group? Would you totally change it up?
I think I would totally change it. I think similar to the direction that you've gone through. And I didn't even know until you just told me what the name for the Power Forward Group.
That's what I love. Hunter and I know each other a long time. We find out things in the podcast room.
But I kind of just heard that the reason that you named it that is helping clients power forward with their finances. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense there. So I think it would be something that would be relevant to the process or value that we're providing more than a specific person or person's names like a law firm.
Right. So we also have a secret with Power Forward Group. It's not really about it's definitely about powering our clients forward. And then everybody thinks, oh, you got that from basketball. It's really about hockey. Because both Hunter and I are hockey guys, which you found out later. Hunter's an Islander fan. So we have that not in common.
I almost didn't come on the podcast,
right.
but I put my feelings aside. We can go to the game together, but I will be wearing an Islander jersey.
Right. Both teams not in great spots right now. So none of us have anything to crow home about, but, so you take over, you fill these big shoes, and how do you create your practice? Is it a continuation? Like what growth and what changes have you kind of brought through the last couple of years?
So I think the first thing was really understanding from the firm and the value that was provided, what it is that we do well, which was really simplify the estate planning and insurance planning process for financial professionals. Many times when we get brought in, they either did their estate planning a long time ago, they have no estate planning, they purchased an insurance product from someone, but they really don't know what they have or why they have. They haven't had deep discussions around, mitigating tax or wealth transfer. And, our job is to provide a level of education and for the existing clients, reinforce or remind them what they have and why they did, what they put in place. And I think it all started there with providing great value to the existing clients, because the majority of our firm continues to grow, organically from introductions from the existing client base. So I spend a lot of time trying to be with our existing clients and making sure that if they have questions about their specific planning or policies, we're there to answer them. We're proactive with them on new ideas. So if tax laws are changing, or their family situation has changed, or their economic situation has changed, that it's not we just help them with one thing and then they never heard from us again. So I think making sure there's consistency and being in front of your clients on a regular basis is in our practice is really critical.
So I've always found it really interesting. You have a focus, and you've said it a couple of times already. Estate planning is part of what you think about your practice. I came from the estate planning world on the legal side. In some ways, to some degree, Power Forward Group is me trying to get away from the estate planning world. But, concentric circles, we always come back to it, right? There's always a level of coming back to the estate planning world. I didn't love the legal side because we get lost in the details and the minutia. And what I found personally was a very transactional nature, right? You build an estate plan from a client point of view, you put a will, a trust, whatever the document is in place. And then for the most part, that's it. Go out on your own and continue on. So when you speak so commonly about estate planning from a financial perspective, what does that mean? Like, what does estate planning mean from a financial advisor?
So I think the first thing that most people struggle with is, what is estate planning? They don't even know what the term means, and I think it's daunting. Everyone thinks you have to have this. You have to be a Rockefeller or a Carnegie or one of these billionaire families to do estate planning, but every person should have basic estate planning documents. And certainly if you're married with children, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate fiduciaries, guardians, executors, and trustees. So I think it's really fundamental one-on-one. It's like when you go to training camp in sports and they start with the real basics of what that is and bringing them up the learning curve. So that way, by the time an attorney is brought in to draft or review their documents, they already have some level of knowledge and education, and they feel that they're on the same side of the table as the other advisors that are in the room. So we spend a fair amount of time just educating clients on the basics of estate planning before even going into advanced planning concepts.
Right. So I think it's super interesting, right? I think when we speak to any client at any level, right, we try to figure out what's your why. What are we doing? What do you want to do? And how can we help you get to that why? Financially speaking, usually that's investments. Usually that's how to grow your capital, how to protect your family. So you have investments, you have risk management. And then the estate plan is really the codification of how do we put those wishes on paper, right? In some ways, when I hear you speak about estate planning, it's in a much more macro level than you hear estate planning attorneys speak about it. So do you find clients start there or they start with estate planning? Where do you find the right entry point for where clients are?
So listen, I think it's a case-by-case basis. It depends upon the process you want to have. I found professionally that the clients we work with the best, we really help them from start to finish with their estate planning. And as a result, any of the other structures we've helped them with, whether term life insurance or survivorship, because it's integrated in the plan, it makes the communication, it makes the process that much better. They know what they have. We're viewed in a different light when that happens, and those are the type of people we really want to work with. And so, you become a consultant, an advisor, rather than a transactional salesperson in part of the process there.
Right. So when it is a little product, like you spoke about products, right? When it is a little product oriented within a larger plan, how do you avoid becoming transactional? How do you ensure that you're part of the client's life going forward?
So again, I think going back to the point I made, if you spent a significant amount of time up front educating them outside of just insurance on, what is estate planning, what is the federal exemption, what are gifting, what are your annual exclusion gifts, how does the entire team work together? If they have a private banker or financial advisor, we're working directly with them in our situation because we're not filing any tax returns, we're not managing any money, and we're not drafting any docs. So we're working as part of their team there, and I believe because of the time put in, they see the value. And for most of our clients, we are introducing them to the attorney after everything has been done, and we are really the quarterback of that specific area of their world. So we're coming to them and saying, hey, you haven't reviewed your estate planning in a few years. Here are the changes that are coming or possibly coming. Let's have a call to review before even going back to the attorney or your team.
I love that. So in some ways, you're managing the relationships, which allows you to kind of sit at the quarterback role behind the scenes and in front of it. Sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes in front of the scenes, and making sure all those relationships are in place and kind of playing traffic control. On the investment side, we're always quarterbacking because the investments are live and happening in real time. But I almost think it's harder sometimes to manage other advisors than it is to manage the market, right? You manage a lot of personality types.
It's very difficult. And I think you find very quickly which advisors want to work as part of a team and which are very protective of the relationships that you have. And it's not perfect. Some are more challenging than others, but I think if the client knows you're there to put their best interest forward, they can see who's there to help and who's there for their own self-interest.
All right. That's interesting. It's a trust factor to a degree, right? I always found as you enter the more affluent clientele, high net worth, ultra high net worth, sometimes advisors will get sharper elbows, right? They want to control the table, even though they're only offering part of the services. And what they're doing is, right, they're controlling the relationships. I think you have to create that trust with the client where we're bringing you value by working within the team, not by, excommunicating you with an aspect of the team.
But it's a challenge because especially in working with, successful families, this is groups of people that everyone wants to work with. And so because of that, you come across those that are very protective of those relationships, and they don't want to be they don't want to be viewed upon that their relationship could end because they're not providing the value they should. And even if bringing us in or someone else in will provide them value, they're very, very protective.
Right. So make everybody look great. Like Hunter walked in here. You guys are hurting me a ton of compliments. I don't know if Hunter really thinks all that stuff, but man, he walks in Power Forward Group podcast. We'll have him again because I feel good about myself. Right.
To Ruvin's credit, they've done a great job, and that I've personally been able to watch the team grow. So this isn't from an outsider's point of view. I've seen it go from one or two people to a growing team here. So they've done a fantastic job.
What I just did is my grandma made amazing apple pie. Every time she made apple pie, she'd go, "It's not too sweet, right?" She's really saying, "Man, that's good damn apple pie, right?" So, I was just fishing for that compliment. But
so I have a question for you, Ruvin.
Please come at me, baby.
So you have a pretty substantial team now. What's the biggest challenge in running your firm with a number of advisors? You have 6 or 7. Maybe
we're up to 10, but yeah, we're growing. Okay.
So 10 advisors. That's a lot of relationships to manage. What's the biggest challenge you face on a day-to-day basis right now?
So on a personal side, I think it's wearing 2 hats at the same time, right? It's still, I think you probably feel similar. I love being a financial advisor. I love being client-centric. But as you scale as a firm, you have to spend a little bit more time on the business side and really finding the why, like why am I scaling? What does it provide my clients, and why am I spending the time doing it? And then how to wear those 2 hats at the same time. I find challenging, right? It's really it's somewhat a time management concern, and somewhat, hey, what would I rather be doing at all times? And the reason we scale is as we grow with more households. From our perspective, is we believe in being a no minimum firm. So we are looking for clients that are growing, right? We want clients that are in a growth perspective. So we want to grow with our clients. Think about our clients almost like we're IPOing with them. But I don't believe $1 million comes on a tree. I think you need, help sometimes getting to that $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, God willing, right? Maybe $1 billion, whatever it is. We want to start early with clients and create that relationship. So to scale that support, we have to grow from an advisory perspective. We have to make sure that we're managing those relationships, which puts me in a spot where we're managing a business day to day as well as advising clients. So I think that's, for me, it's a big struggle. I'm going to flip it. How about yourself? You guys have been growing.
Challenging. It's very challenging. I think we took a step back. I personally took a step back, and I hired a brand new coach earlier this year that I heard speak over the summer. I'd been looking for kind of a year and a half to figure out who would be the right coach to spend more time on the business rather than in the business on what's our long-term vision, not just a year out but 5 years out. What does the team look like? Where should I be spending my time? Is the team that we have here, are they in the right seat on the bus? Who do we need to add? And I definitely don't have all those answers, but on each of my coaching sessions, and I meet with him in my case twice a month, we're getting closer to answering those, and I feel a lot more confident now than I did 6 months ago. And I do think that's trickling down to the other team members. You'd have to ask them that question. But I think similar to you, making sure, and we're completely remote, and has its own challenges. Right. Making sure that everyone feels there's a sense of culture, meaning amongst the team. They feel there's an opportunity to grow, and everyone all rows. I don't know if that's the right saying, or
rowing in the same direction.
Rowing in the same direction, and it's easy to wake up and just go from client meeting to client meeting to client meeting, and seeing that being a positive flow, and other things not really occurring. So I'm hyper focused right now on the business, not just in the business.
Right.
But being, client facing is what I assume what you love to do. So that part is harder to take time out to do that, but it's critical if you want to get to, a better place, and you want your team to be at a better place.
Right. And the end goal there is you're still serving your clients, just serving them in a different capacity sometimes. I think what has made why I've loved to have you on here, and I think what's been a big power to what your success is. You share, right? You came, Fred, there you go. You can have my cup. You want to share my cup? Shared my comb before the call. But you walked into Fred's shoes, right? He shared with you. You give it back. I met you wearing a 3-piece suit. You're sharing with us today. So Hunter, nicely enough, had me sit in on one of his coaching sessions with his coach, Adam, who was wonderful. And I think it was probably a little bit more broad-based than Hunter's day-to-day sessions that he's having with his coach. I loved, and I think for all our clients out there, I thought this was a great piece of the coaching session. Adam discussed elevator pitches, right? The idea of like, how do you, and I think at the end of the day, we're all in sales to some degree. Whatever you do, you could be a teacher at a university. You want students to take your class and you want, people to read your books. You're in financial services. You want more clients. Wherever you are in life, you're in sales to some degree. You want to put out there to the world what you're doing. And in a post-COVID world, I think we have to focus more on the day-to-day a little bit. We were just at an event. We saw a ton of great people. So elevator pitch, tell us more about what we learned about the elevator pitch.
So it was really interesting, I think, for both of us, because we're talking to people on a regular basis here. And we have advisors that were in the meeting. But in many ways, it was like we were doing our elevator pitches for the first time and starting over. And
there's advisors on my team that have been on Zoom. They started after COVID, and they've 98% of the time been on Zoom. They've never had to do an in-person meet.
Yeah, and I think even for our servicing team, it gave them a chance to hear what they're saying, because they're talking to clients even more, than I am, and people love talking to them probably as much, if not more, than me or any of the other advisors. And what they didn't realize was, hey, everyone on the team, in some way, shape, or form, whether they're directly or indirectly, they're in sales, and there were takeaways that I don't think they were even aware of, or value that they could provide. That it was really interesting to listen to them interact with Adam and see their excitement, and that brought me probably the biggest joy of that. Half a day session with Adam was, watching our team members, Hadley and Megan and TJ and Ennio, like write down their elevator speech. But
even for you, right? One of the things you brought up was, Thanksgiving dinner, you're with, I don't know, a cousin, right? And they say to you, hey, Hunter, how's business, right? How do you, you shared it. Like, how do you want to respond to that automatically?
Great. Tell me about your business. So my instant answer to that was to say it's great, and then start asking them questions. Maybe it's just,
well, you're a great listener, but okay.
But that was kind of has been my process, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's okay to share with my cousin or whomever, some exciting things that are going on. Not because we need him to become or her to become a client, but it is a way to educate people as to what you do. Right. Most people don't really know what it is that we actually...
You're putting yourself out there to the world.
Correct. Exactly. So it was interesting to spend time during that session and kind of reframe or go backwards to, how to react in those situations.
Yeah. What I really loved is, we spoke about that a little bit, and the coach shared. One of the great things to do is just share a story, right? Something recent that happened at work that's interesting, right? Stories are interesting. People want to hear. It also somewhat tells about what you do. A client story without giving the names and the details is a great way to speak about that. So I loved, and I walked away with a ton of knowledge from that. And then I thought I knew how to do an elevator pitch. And then I watched our friend Michael Kane, who's been on the podcast before. Hunter, I, and Michael were at the Deal Book Summit, the New York Times Deal Book Summit last week. And Michael was sitting next to a CEO of a Fortune 500 company that we saw last year and this year. And he did it so well, I had to ask him afterwards. I said, was that thought out? Did you hear his pitch?
I was not there during that.
Oh, it was great. We're walking out of a session. So you got, a minute. And the individual's in transportation. And Michael said to him, he was talking about, Michael loves flying. He flies a lot for work. He spoke about, Delta Sky, all the benefits that, a lot of transportation services will give to make you really feel like you have that relationship with them. And he got, his back and forth from the individual. And then Mike said, there's a great article I read, in the New York Times, about how Four Seasons really said, we're going to create a great value proposition to our clients without any of those tiers, without any of those extras. And the response is, oh, that'd be wonderful. Michael, would you like me to share that article with you? Of course, the answer is yes. Now he's given value. He's created that connection. and he's got the contact info. I thought that was so well done. It was so smooth that I said, Mike, did you think through that whole operation? He goes, of course. So we always have somebody to look up to. So I'm glad I got coached a little bit. And I said, even with the coach, there's somebody else to look up to.
So speaking on that, I know we don't have that much time left. We saw a lot of great speakers, obviously. Oh, wow. So of all the speakers that we heard at the New York Times Deal Book Summit, give me your top one or two lines of takeaway and from who that you took back to your team or your company. Because I'd love to hear. So
I haven't had a chance to take it back yet, but I was really excited about. Last year a year ago we saw Elon Musk. This year we saw Jeff Bezos, and I thought Elon Musk was the most interesting and scary but impressive speaker I've ever heard. And then Jeff Bezos, without being scary, was even more impressive. And he said one thing that really resonated with me on multiple levels. He said, just keep running faster. Just keep moving faster. And the question started off regarding the U.S. deficit from an economic standpoint. And he was so positive and optimistic. He said, that's not a problem. We just have to keep growing faster. And he brought that back to Amazon, where Amazon worked at a loss for the first 11 years. They didn't turn a profit. So he was totally comfortable with that concept, but he was just moving faster. He's growing faster. And when I think about that from a Power Forward Group perspective, I think we just keep growing. We want to grow. There's going to be, you mentioned before, you want everybody rowing in the right directions. There's going to be some issues there, but you got to outrun the problems and keep moving forward. And then I thought, even on a life perspective, we discuss with clients all the time, their investments, their growth, their protection assets, everything going on. Everybody's trying to solve for the current environment, the way they are today, stasis. But we all believe that we're going to grow. We're going to grow. We're going to progress. And it's almost like we should be, smartest man I ever worked with on a client base said, don't just buy your house, buy the house next door. And I said, I couldn't afford it. He said, no, you can afford it. Just get it and you'll afford it. And he was right? You're just going to keep stretching yourself further, keep trusting yourself to grow, and you're going to outrun it by creating those, responsibilities. You're going to create forced growth if you trust in yourself. So I love that. And I think the other thing I liked a lot was the interviewer, Aaron Ross Sorkin.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Just an amazing job. The guy does, 15, I don't know how many interviews he does. In a 8-hour span, he's able to flip from one to the next and really ask interesting, tough questions while still maintaining a great relationship with the person he's interviewing. And at every interview, at the end, he was able to find that closing question, which was almost shook them a little bit, almost set them back in their seat from Bill Clinton to Jeff Bezos. It was like, wait, that's a damn good question. I got to think for a minute. If you make somebody think, right, you've shaken them up. You've gotten the real version. How about you?
So I think it was a combination. And I've said to my kids, I keep calling him Jeff Bezos for some reason. So if they listen to this, they're going to crack up because they keep making fun of me that I'm mistaking his name. I've said it 3 times over the last couple
Bezos,
of days.
right?
Yes, exactly.
There we go. I screwed it up probably also.
I said it just so when they
it's
hear this.
It's because we're from Brooklyn and Long Island.
They can laugh at this a little bit, which I'm sure they will, and make fun of me at the dinner table. I thought he made a point of saying that he doesn't go into situations being, skeptical or questioning what people's intentions are. And I thought that was really interesting. And that he said that added a lot to his success, basically meaning that he takes what people say at face value and that most people are good intentioned until proven otherwise. And he doesn't want to waste his time thinking anything but that. And I found that for someone in, his position, and he's so powerful that maybe there'd be people that he would be skeptical as telling him stuff or trying to lie or deceive him. And he completely went the other way on that. And I thought that was, really, really interesting. Alex Cooper, who was a very different interview. It wasn't as much of what she said as the confidence she had in herself. It was something I took away was, wow, everyone else there was someone from finance or, an ex-president or these very, very polished positions. And not that Alex Cooper is not polished, but her vibe was obviously very, very different. I mean, Aaron Sorkin almost felt uncomfortable asking the questions, but she was so confident in herself. And every time she was asked a question, you could tell that she had felt that she would be better than someone, else at what she does, and kept going back to that. And I thought, wow, that's something I can, take when I'm working, but also instill in my, my family and my kids and everyone at home.
So I love that transition because that's actually going to be our next podcast. We're going to dive deeply into the Dealbook Summit. But that interview itself is really interesting with the sense of what we're doing today is we're doing a podcast. She's a podcast host. One of the questions asked was about new media versus old media and trust of clients. And she's very focused, and I think a lot of podcast hosts are very focused on serving their audience. And the old media, CNN, Fox News, her point was they're just selling stuff, right? They're knocking at the door. I know your son loves Fox News, but they're knocking at the door, right? They're slamming some idea home. And I think we see this in our industry a lot. I think what I found as the unlocking of the key to success is it's uncomfortable to get in front of people. And what I found is the most successful clients we have at Power Forward Group are those most open to trusting themselves to hear our ideas. Meaning they'll listen. Doesn't mean they're going to say yes. Doesn't mean they're going to do what we want them to do. But they trust their ability to vet. And I think that's where the old media fails, right? They're trying to tell you what to do. And the podcast media, her version is, hey, I'm going to open up to my audience. I'm going to provide this. They're smart enough. I think that's the next generation of, let's take in unfettered news. I'm accepting that Joe Rogan has a point. Alex Cooper has a point. Hunter Gimbel, Ruvin Lavavi has a point. But I can now use that point and I can vet it and decide how it fits my life. I think that's where I want my kids going. What do you see as the biggest change coming in the next 5 years in our industry?
I think we still have an issue, especially on the life insurance side of the market, that you're going to have more and more advisors that will retire.
Yeah.
And maybe not retire, just they won't move at the same pace. And we don't have enough young people coming into our space. And so how do we help serve those people that are underinsured or need to have an advisor? And you could look up LIMRA stats up the wazoo, but most people feel they don't have enough insurance, not they have too much insurance. And if you take a big portion of the advisory group out, who's going to be speaking with the general public about their planning and their insurance? And I think that's a big concern. I'm curious to see what changes our industry can make to motivate people to come in. Maybe there'll be some type of show like Selling New York, where it's about insurance and it makes the industry sexy. But I think that's a big problem that we have right now.
So you have a focus on the insurance side. On the advisory side, it's a reverse, but very similar, right? There's a lot of, there's Robin, there's a lot of abilities to invest. Even on the insurance side, right? There's marketplaces that people can buy. But I think it's the same point, right? It's not a commodity, right? Insurance isn't a commodity. Investment's not a commodity. At the end of the day, what we're providing is, hey, where do you want to go? It's where you started. The end, you started the end with, you can ask them. You started the end with estate planning. You started the end because you're asking client where they want to end, what their life goal is. And then your advice is how to get them there. If you're just purchasing off a marketplace, I think it goes back to CNN and old media. You're purchasing what wants to be sold at you. So I think we need to bring more advisors in the industry.
I think the other thing that will happen is, listen, AI is in every industry right now. And so it will be really interesting to see how successful advisors leverage that to provide great value, how consumers want to use that to make purchasing decisions. I think it will improve some of the communication because some of them will do more homework and research. But that will be something that we will all have to navigate through because the whole world is moving to AI in some way, shape, or form.
Right. So as a tool, but you sound excited about it, which I like.
Yeah, I think the future is bright of our industry, and I think it's a recession-proof business. I love what I do. There's nothing that provides me more joy than knowing that I helped an individual or family, and they reach out and they say, thank you for motivating us to get all of this done. We couldn't have gotten it done without you. And I think there's a lot more people to help.
So the man's got it all solved. We'll find out in 5 years what the name is, whether it stays where it is, whether it moves around a little bit, but I'm excited to see the next steps. Love it.
Ruvin, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.